Welcome to the Freedom Fridays podcast. With me, your host, Pete Clark, the Whispers guy. Work seems to expand to the time that we give it. And I've been investing my time, occasionally on a Friday, to explore how we use our time, our energy, our attention, and the impact it has on our identity. I've been exploring over season 1 some of the mindset shifts in the handcuffs of I have to the freedom of I choose to. And I've shared some conversations, some tips, some tools about how you might want to invest your own time, your own energy, your own attention. How you might want to, if you choose to, make some changes to your identity. How you might have freedom from I have to and design a life around I choose to. If that's of interest to you, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to this week's edition of the Freedom Fridays podcast with me, your host, Pete Clark, the Whispers guy. This week, I have a returning guest, a good friend of mine, a work buddy and a soul brother who has probably shared many times questions that he doesn't know I've appreciated because I've then gone to live them out. So, Richard Oakes, welcome to the conversation.
Pete, very nice to be here as always.
We were talking offline that both of us have recently-ish, the last 12 months or so, and currently have gone through some challenging times, personally and professionally. And we were just kind of riffing off each other in terms of what have you tried, what hasn't worked, what do you do, how do you navigate the feast and famine of life and stuff like that. And we just thought that would be a useful thing to talk about, to offer what has worked for us individually, what hasn't worked. And so that's really what we're going to talk about. When things are tough, when life's not being abundant, it would appear, what do you do? So if I start with that, without necessarily revealing what's not, when life's not been abundant, what's your immediate response, and then what's your more measured response?
Yeah, I mean, it's just going back to the sort of preamble we had. We always ask that great question, like, how are you? What's going on? And you know me, I'm not the sort of person who will give you a flippant or a something. I'm fine, thank you.
How are you? Yeah,
he's never going to get that from me.
Yeah,
and I think that's the first thing that possibly helps, is to be realistic about where you're at, and not be afraid of that. Like to say, yeah, I mean, because it's very easy just to pass it off, isn't it? And say, yeah, no, I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, anyway, let's crack on. Because I do think that there is so much adversity teaches us, or can teach us, if you can accept it. Like if you can really lean into when things aren't going well. Whether it's been it's been across all facets of my life in the last 9 months. I had a huge crash when I was going for the world record on my bike. So physically, I've been in the biggest hole I've been in probably for a long time. After that big crash. And I'm also shifting like what my business did and what it's doing, and writing this book and launching, and sort of moving. There's a lot of moving pieces. And I think I said to you in the preamble, I feel like, wow, I'm being tested.
Yeah.
Like it's one step forward and 2 back on almost everything. And what's that saying? It's a bit cliched, like it is the darkest hour is before dawn, or whatever they say.
Yeah.
So I think this sort of acceptance, or being aware of it, talking about it, I think is really super important. Like if you can find someone who you can talk about this stuff to, it's worth its weight in gold.
I couldn't agree more. My my mum used to say, I think I mentioned this before, let your wind gang free wherever you may be, for holding it in was the death of me.
Can you have subtitles? Can we have some subtitles?
Yeah, we might. Yeah,
But
which
they're
is
not Scottish.
essentially saying, like, let your wind go free wherever you may be, for holding it in will be the death of me.
Right, okay, yeah.
Now, if you take the second part of that sentence, for holding it in will be the death of me.
Yeah.
And I think there's many of us who are, serial achievers, at least in our own worlds, our own
Yeah.
perceptions of, and suddenly it's not quite going our way, and we hold it in.
Yeah.
Because I'm strong, right? I can get through that. I've done it before. I'll just push my way through. How are you, Pete? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. I'm good. Knowing full well I'm not, but having an outlet where you can say, you know what, I'm pretty shit actually, without the response, oh, come on, buddy, cheer up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, why don't you just go for a walk? Almost like this toxic fixology of, oh, I'm uncomfortable in how Pete's uncomfortable, so therefore I better cheer him up.
Yes.
And it's
And that's it's a very manly, it's a very male thing to do as well.
It is.
Not universally. I don't want to sort of categorize the sexes so in such a black and white way, because nothing's black and white. Nothing. I'm sure there'll be, women listening to this will be like, oh, Christ, yeah. I know where this is going. So I think this issue of being able to unpack it and talk about it.
Yeah. So what do you think happens? What's going on for us in the unpacking, in the talking it out? Where's the value? Why is it valuable that we have someone or something we can just talk it out loud?
For me, anyway, I can only speak personally for me. This may resonate for others, but for me, when I speak things out, it's sort of acknowledging their existence for one. Like you give it, air, or you give it space, or you can, it becomes a thing, and in it becoming a thing, you can sort of relativize it. It helps to relativize it. Like when you talk it out, it's like, oh well, okay, maybe it's not as bad as I thought, or so that's part of it. The second part is that there's nothing nicer than being held by another person, like another person's caring and listening. Like for me, that's super powerful. Not like this podcast, for example, is certainly helpful for me on this subject, given where I'm at the moment. So I think that's the second thing. I think the third thing is that, the energy, it's like an energetic process. So like for me, like in my body, I carry an energy, like this has an energy, has a feeling to it, like a heaviness. And when I talk about it, I always feel lighter energetically, like it's an energetic. I used to say, didn't they, the old wives tell you, like, get the problem off your chest, get a problem, share it from after all those slightly cliched things. And I find anyway that in the process of talking about it, it's a bit like that scene in one of the Harry Potter films where they have to imagine their worst fears in that wardrobe thing, and they come out giant spiders and all this sort of stuff, and they sort of laugh at them, and they sort of turn them into things that they're not frightened of. And I think sometimes if you can talk out something, get it out, you realize it isn't the big ugly sort of frightening demon that maybe you felt when it was just inside you. Like, just when you get it out, it's sort of, these all link, don't they? You feel lighter. You know, it's nice to be able to share it with somebody else. You feel supported. You can, I physically feel lighter, and so you end up, I think, in a place where not coping. You know, if coping's the right word, it sounds a bit too dramatic. It's like I said to you just before. You know, for me, if I talk this through and I can sort of realize for myself that actually life is about applying yourself to the best of your ability, and it's who you are and what you are being that is more important than what you're getting.
Yeah.
And my problem or concern or whatever it might be, where I feel I'm being tested at the moment, is I'm doing a lot of doing and being, but the results aren't quite coming as they have done in the past.
Yeah.
And so, like, what's the test there? The test. I said to you, I feel like I'm being tested. What's the test? You know, the test is how so that's the question. Like, what do you think the test is? Back to you. I mean, well, back to you on the thing about sharing, but also this thing about the test. What do you think the test is?
Yeah, the couple of things that struck me. The first thing was this commonly used language. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And you may have done the exercise, but you know the exercise where if you ask someone to hold a glass, you know, straight arm out, you know, is it heavy? No. Well, let's see then. Is it heavy? No. All right, well, let's wait 20 minutes then. Is it heavy? Oh, geez, it becomes heavier. Not because the glass has retained and gained any weight, but the strain on your arm of holding it, it's now really heavy. And I don't even know if there's any neurological or metaphysical explanation for us, but it feels like that our thoughts gain weight.
Oh, most definitely.
Right. And so they gain weight between our ears.
Yeah.
And so in the speaking it out, and I wish there was a nice way of phrasing this, you know, it's never as bad as you think. It's much better when you speak it out. Something like that. It seems to lose the heaviness and the weight when it's literally the thought has come out of your mouth and you're no longer holding it between your ears.
Well, or even holding it in your body, for me, it doesn't just sit in my head.
Without a doubt.
It's an embodied experience, you know. It's a little bit harder to get out of bed in the morning, you know, when things aren't. It's a little bit harder to go to the gym. It's a little bit harder to do my cycling training. It's a little bit hard, you know, everything's just a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
Now the sort of the hard-edged athlete David Goggins side of me.
Right? He'd go,
right?
Yeah, you're being tested, mate.
Well, he would say, oh, that's fantastic. You should absolutely walk towards that.
Yeah.
You should get in there, because that's where the growth comes. That's where the learning is. You know, it's way more satisfying to go out and do 4 hard hours on my bike with hell efforts and it's raining, and like you get home, it's like, wow, you feel so alive. If I just tootled around the lanes for a few hours, you know, at 15 miles an hour, you get back and it's like, well, okay, that was nice.
Have you heard of you've obviously heard of Tim Ferriss. Have you heard of his fear setting exercise?
Oh, no, go on.
It's something that he professes to practice every 6 months, and rather than goal
Yeah,
setting, he fear sets. And the
right.
process is it's interesting, right? Because step
Yeah,
one, to define your nightmare, to define the absolute worst that can happen, what doubt or fears and what ifs pop up as you consider the big changes that you'd
yeah,
have to make, envisage them in painstaking detail.
yes,
Would it be the end of your life? Really go catastrophic in the thinking.
yeah,
And then the second step is, what steps could you then take to repair the damage?
yeah. So,
How would
so
you
I
get
had,
on
yeah,
track? How would you take the next step? How would you get things back under control if the worst actually did happen? Then to think about the benefits and the outcomes of both.
yeah,
Is there a lesson in this? Is there a gift? Am I being tested? Is
yeah,
it just bad luck? Is it bad timing? Is it because I'm done? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then what are you putting off most because of the fear?
yes.
It's a lovely, whilst confronting, and maybe not something to do on your own, maybe. It's an interesting process to go through when you're in it, to kind of do a fear setting exercise.
Well, I didn't realize. I originally read Tim's book, 4 Hour Work Week. Um, oh, 20 years ago, probably. And when I was deciding to give up my proper job to do my entrepreneurial thing, there was a thing in Tim's book. It wasn't as detailed as what you just said. But the exercise was, if you're going to do something and take a big risk, get a piece of paper, put a line down the middle, list on the left, what's the worst that could happen? On the right, what would you do if that happened? So it's a much simpler version. It's like an earlier version of
I
this.
think it's just an updated build on that,
Yeah,
because that's the first two steps.
yeah. And so I remember sitting there with Jules, my wife, and we did the list. We did the list, right? And so I think it's really interesting you said don't do it on your own. I would
Yeah,
really,
I'm picking up on just if I reflect on my own, imperfect processes, I'm much worse on my own. If I was to
yeah,
do a catastrophic exercise, I could be in a hell of a state,
yeah, yeah,
right? Now, the reflective part of it might be beneficial on my own,
yeah,
but then I can see enormous value in reading out loud to someone like you.
yeah,
And I'd find it more healing and more releasing in reading it out to someone like you than reading it out to myself, or reading it out to a stranger, or
yeah,
reading it out
yeah,
to the wall.
yeah.
There's something in the that there's for me there's something in the connection part that means you're not necessarily attached to the energy release, but you're allowing the energy to be released.
Well, I agree with that entirely, but I'm just reflecting on how it feels when someone asks you how you really are and you start talking like this. Like it's not comfortable.
No.
And you can see quite a lot of people, they ask you how you are, but they don't really want the answer.
And that's fine in the lift. It's fine in the coffee shop. It's fine you bump into someone in the supermarket.
But I find it really hard not to answer it honestly. That's my problem. That's my
Yeah.
problem. Um, yeah. Hmm. There was a second part to my question to you about test, about what's the test. Do you think it's a test? Or what do you think it's a test? Right. 2, what is it if you think it's a test? And who's doing the testing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I'd love your thinking on that. Is it a test? What is it? And who's doing the testing?
Well, again, look, the answer is I don't know, and I don't know.
Right.
But I'll say something anyway. So is it a test? Well, for me, a test kind of comes with a pass or fail.
Yeah.
So I'm not keen on the binary aspect of pass or fail.
Yeah.
So is it a test? If you'd said to me, is it a phase? Is it a season? Is it a chapter? Is it something that I can perceive as not necessarily passing or failing, but navigating through?
Yeah.
And so then if I go to the what's been tested, without it being a test, again, the answer is I don't know. But if I was to answer it, I'd say maybe we're being challenged to navigate, in its broadest sense, life, in its most practical sense, the slings and arrows that come our way.
Yeah.
One of the things, so when you and I did the Deepak Chopra Abundant Challenge, the one thing that I've been noticing more and more, and the thing that I chose to kind of put front and center to work on is, and I don't know the exact phrasing, the essence of it being, why should I expect life to go the way I want it to? And being comfortable enough or being practiced enough with the lefts and the rights and the ups and the downs that inevitably will cross my path. And I would say I've become, 0.0001% better at being okay with the slings and arrows that come my way. Still get triggered by clients disappearing, by friends disappearing, by not being acknowledged for this, that, or the other. And, exactly the same as you, that the paying it forward, it seems like it's just one way sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
And so this idea that, is that forever? Is that a long season?
Yeah.
Is it a test? Now, your question about who's doing the testing. Gee, no idea. If I was to give myself a practical answer, it's me. It's me testing me. And the reason I'd say that's a practical answer is because if it's me testing me, that gives me some agency, which is my MO. That's my modus operandi. If I've got agency, I can then choose to pass or fail or stop the test or change the test. But that's only because it's a kind of security blanket. Is there a higher purpose? Is there some other force in play that's, somewhere, somehow, in some dimension, right? Let's test this boy. Right, let's. He thinks he's good at mindset. Come on, let's really find out.
Yeah.
Because if it is that higher dimension for me, well, I've failed.
Well, have you? That's the question, isn't it?
Well,
you're still here.
In some determination, right? In my own determination, often I would say that. Now, maybe not like we've said in others. And I wonder, it came to me, I wonder if it's a bit like when the student's ready. The teacher appears.
Yeah.
And if we do learn our greatest lessons through our darkest times, I pragmatically feel that's much easier to do on the back end.
What, as opposed to when you're in the middle of it?
As opposed to when you're in the middle of it. And as you were talking, I was writing down, so you're familiar with William Bridges, the transitions model?
No, go
on. So as we transition from different stages and states and things in our life, you go from school to uni, you go from uni to job, you go from single to married, you go from childless to having kids, whatever it is, you go from marriage to divorce, those transitions. Yes. His research would suggest we go through three main domains. One is endings. The next bit is what's called the neutral zone, and the other is beginnings.
Yeah.
Right. Now, it never often happens in that order, and it doesn't necessarily happen over a weekend. No. But when I've kind of done my reading around that, I can reconcile the endings part. What's ending? What can I let go of? What can I hold a bit looser? I can reconcile the beginnings part, which is what I'm looking forward to. What could I be in the future? Future possible self, all that sort of stuff. Yes. And this description of the neutral zone feels like anything but neutral. It feels bloody horrible.
It's like no man's land.
It's like no man's land. It's like nothing to hold on to. It's like nothing's happening. You can no one's around, nothing's happening, nothing's working. Jeez, this is just terrible. It's hard, it's heavy. And that's how we would perfectly describe the no man's land, the neutral zone. Yeah. So it's ironic. It's anything but neutral. But it's this transition from something that's ending to something that's beginning.
And so but there's almost like a judgment that you've put on that as bad. Like the word you've used to describe that. We're all negative. We're all sort of negative words. Like they were like, it's bad, it's terrible, it's a nightmare, it's no one's there, it's lonely. It's like you could say there's this association with that zone. I mean, I recognise what you've said there, like it, and what Bridges has sort of research describes. Like I can recognise the endings and the beginnings.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm definitely ending something, or I've ended something. I'm in the process of ending something.
Yeah.
Well, ending sounds very final, and often it's not final. You could separate from a person, but you still got kids with them or whatever it might be. So it's always grey area, but I get the gist of the big three, the big three movements. And until you articulated it that way, I hadn't sort of seen this period as this neutral period. It makes sense to me, like when I think about when you get in your helicopter and you look at the big picture. But the other thing I think is interesting is that it's very easy to talk yourself into that being a bad thing.
Very easy.
Especially for the serial achievers.
Yep. And so you rush to the new beginning.
Yeah. And but the more you try and rush to the new beginning, like the less it comes to you.
That's right. And it keeps you in the neutral zone.
So you're your own sort of worst enemy, really, for extending the neutral zone. Like you said, like how long is the neutral zone? Is it forever? Is that
you hope not.
I mean, the sort of purist kind of Deepak Chopra version of myself would say, you just have to be who you are in that space.
Yeah.
And in fact, what he talks about actually, and this is common to a lot of meditative, the more kind of mindful, abundant type philosophies, is that if you have a vision for the new self and you do the inner work on yourself, the mindfulness, presence to now, the making the most of every day, then you tell me if you think this is not a right summary. The system or the universe or whatever you want to call it, the energy field in which we go about our business, will guide you to the right new beginnings into the new thing.
Yeah.
And so when maybe I've just got a bad memory, right? Because I don't remember in my life this degree of neutral zone. I've done changes before, and when I've kicked into changes, that they typically delivered results quite quickly, I suppose. And so then you get enthusiasm, then you get energy from, oh, this has worked. Oh, great. You put a bit of fuel on the fire and it burns. Oh, great. That's good. Whereas at the moment, I keep putting things on the fire and they just don't burn.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Why is that? Have I not got the right vision, goal? Is that not right? So you start questioning, like, is that not right? So do I need to go back to that and look at that? It's like there's like two bookends to me. There's like the vision that you have or the future self you want to be, where you're heading, the sense of direction. I want to get over there from here.
Yeah.
And then there's what do I do every day? What's the habit? What's the practice that I do every day? And to love that and let the universe guide me to there, which is sort of what I've been. So this is interesting. I think I've been doing that more with this phase of my life than ever before.
Right.
Always before I've been like, no, you can't let the universe bring it to you. You've got to go out there and kill it. You've got to get out there and kill it. You're the caveman. The saber-toothed tiger's not going to come into you. You've got to go and get it. And so I think I've been, and this is a very interesting discovery for me. I think I've been much more focused on the vision and focused on my practice of being present and do those things rather than going to kill it. Right. And what I'm finding is, oh, this is my inner story, right? This doesn't appear to be working. Right. So, am I beginning to panic? And all of the readings, all of the stuff that you and I have done, what's the what message would you say to someone who said that to you? What would you say to me if I said that to you? What's your reflection back to me?
Well, what struck me was it reminded me of the conversation we had, and maybe even on our first podcast together, where I shared this distinction that I was going through because I was exactly the same, and probably to a degree still am, that life happened by me. I made things happen.
Yeah.
I've got agency and I'm all in. I'll make it happen. Even if it's not perfect, it's down to me. 100%, 200%, 1000% responsibility. Everything's caused by me. And it was becoming heavy. I was burnt out. It was becoming overwhelming and I was getting tired of it. And I think I shared the book with you, 15 leadership.
Yeah.
Right? And so the next phase was, and I only wanted kind of an 80-20 split. I don't want to lose all of the life by me. I quite enjoyed that part. Because the next evolution for me was life happens through me, which is a small but really interesting possibility. And I'm curious as to if in any way, shape, or form, you've kind of gone all in for all of life to happen through you, as opposed to a percentage or a somewhat.
I've definitely gone a long way toward have the vision, do the daily practice, pay forward, help other people, pay forward, pay forward, pay forward. Invest, invest, invest. Be valuable to other people. Offer your assistance to other people. Give out things to other people. Set things up for other people, and expect nothing in return. And guess what? That's exactly what's happening. And
well, what's happening is there's not any necessarily material return.
yes, that's true.
And if I was to do an audit on the strength of connection you have now to the people that you've helped and served, I guarantee it will be stronger.
Yes, I can see that. But it feels to me that those people have gone forth and said, that's been great. Bye-bye. And
what did you expect? They're humans.
Yeah. And I suppose the question is that, like I said, this question about the test, and I thought your answer was really interesting. Like, sort of you sort of copped up to that. You copped out a bit, like you went, I don't know. But then you did go on to qualify. I don't know, but this is what I think. Sometimes that's all we have. Arguably, that's all we have anyway. For anything, we don't know anything. But I guess it's a test. I don't think it's a test. I don't think it's a test. I think it's probably it's life. It's like what life is.
Mm-hmm.
Is one like why is life like that? I think because that's if you're really willing to step into this space that you and I have been dabbling with. I've probably gone down it a bit more than you. That's what it means to be alive. That's what it means to be at the service of other people, to be there for others, to not be totally attached to the result, to the materialistic side of it, to be in the now, like it. And who is doing the testing? I think for me, it's this sort of, it's like the universal consciousness. It's like the connected consciousness of us all. Like we're all connected at the end of the day. I think I don't know, but it's back to this universal conscious idea that we tap into, and we carry a small part of that around in our hearts and souls and brains, and it's our bit. Our bit sits in these bodies, and we go off and do what we do with it. And so what's been very interesting about this conversation is it poses to me this question: am I actually in this struggle in the neutral zone, finding what it feels like to be a slightly higher version, like a better version of myself, a more complete version of myself?
It's a great curiosity.
Yeah. And why that, I think, speaks to my character is, if you take my sporting achievements, when you get to a certain level of capability, let's say you might become the top 10 athlete in your country or whatever it might be, top 20, that takes a certain degree of suffering and self-encounter. And if you want to be the best version of yourself and compete, say, on the world stage consistently, you have to take yourself into a different realm of self-encounter, challenge, difficulty, suffering, hardship, injury, like whatever you want to, however you want to paint the picture. And anybody who's mastered anything will tell you the same story.
Yeah.
Right. They've got to the top of their tree, or you always hear the same story. And so if I was to draw an analogy to the test that we've talked about, like the suffering or the test or the chapter or the phase or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. I acknowledge the test, pass, fail. Yeah, I get that. But I'm more in the pass fail bracket, I think, because of my sporting background. Because sure. Like if you can master it, you'll win and you become a world champion or whatever it is. If you don't, you won't, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I do acknowledge totally, like, it's not your point. And so this feeling, what language, description, energy am I giving this feeling when I'm in the neutral zone? And the athlete in me would say, you need to tell yourself, this is the work that needs to be done. This is the feeling. This is the hardship. This is the toughness. These are the hard yards, Rich, for you to emerge as the world champion or a better, whatever the equivalent is. And so I think I need to reframe. And I would argue in the way you described it, maybe you do too. And engage with, journal, or do some work on the story, the narrative that goes along that neutral zone. Because I've been dragged, if that's the right word. I've ended up with a narrative in this neutral zone that's not a good one. And when actually, if you think about it, if you know the story about the butterfly, the woman who helps the butterfly, and he picks the catalyst, and because the butterfly then flops on the floor, it can't fly.
Yeah.
She's traumatized. Oh my God, I thought I was helping. No, the reason the catalyst is hard So the butterfly's wings can push out, and in the process of pushing out, the butterfly's wings build the strength for it to fly.
That's a great story.
Yeah. And if we're not careful in this neutral zone, you could look for things that are the equivalent to someone unpicking the catalyst for you. Someone cracking open the catalyst. When actually what you've got to do is you've got to be in there, you've got to feel that struggle in the neutral zone and realize to get to the new version of yourself, whatever that needs to be, this is where it's at. This energy, these feelings, these.
Can I speculate with something?
Yeah, please do. I'm rambling on a bit.
So in your abundant practice, in all of the giving, as you've done, as you've said, you've given, you've paid it forward, etc., 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 and then tagged on the end, the philosophy is without expecting anything in return. Right, to give without expecting anything in return. That's the philosophy.
Well, who tagged that philosophy on the end?
You did. You said, that's the philosophy about, abundance. I need to, give and pay it for without expecting anything in return.
Yes.
And in the next breath, we're talking the practical examples of maybe the athlete riches coming out, because then all those people have come and gone. Bye.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, do you sense any energy in that? As in, is there a tension between the philosophy of not expecting anything in return with the practicality of, well, maybe a little bit would be nice?
Totally. 100%. 100%. And it's in that little thing you've just identified there where the development edge is, where the growth is, where the learning mastery bit of this abundance journey is presenting itself. It's like, that's very hard. To sit with. And, yet the greatest teachers ever, Buddha, they'll say, yeah, but that's where it is. That's the edge. There's the agenda. That is it.
Yeah. Which, speaks into, full surrender as opposed to partial surrender. And it's easy for me to say, because I'm not in your world, I could probably argue the case for, boy, you've had to return more than you'd ever imagine. It just hasn't happened yet.
Say that again.
This idea that nothing's come back, I could probably make a case for. It hasn't come back because the circumstances haven't appeared yet. If I take you to end of life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'm speculating with the numbers. You've now just probably, and gained is the wrong word because you're not doing it for gain, but you've now just got another 50 people coming to your funeral because of the impact you've had on their lives.
Yes.
That's priceless.
Yes.
For the impact you've had on their lives.
Yeah.
Without even knowing.
Yeah.
You've planted seeds, the shade of which you'll never experience.
Correct. And therefore you've got to reframe have you got to reframe? Like, you either just accept that. That's it. That is enough. Move on.
Now.
Move on. Well, I do like your little rider there for now. I do like that. I really like that. And
Because,
this is
well, one of the things that Bridges says around the neutral zone is things like, do you have any agency here? Where do you normally get your certainty from? What structures can you put in place to create some certainty whilst all around you is apparently chaotic? And for me, not this, for me, if I'm in the neutral zone and I can add that little for now, that gives me a tiny bit of something to hold on to.
Yeah. I mean, my structures would be the creation of that future state vision, where I'm heading to, which sort of has a ride underneath it, which is I'm going towards that destination whilst I've got breath. Right? That would never, I'll never stop heading towards that destination, that future version of myself. It's where I want to be. And who I want to be. And then I come back to the now, and then there's my discipline and consistency of the practice of who I'm being each day. And that then you develop your habits and your practice, and you know how you show up and all that sort of stuff. And what I'm grappling with is I want that to be enough. And I want to see what the universe brings.
This just came up on my feed. This just came up on my feed today.
Yeah.
Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it.
There you go.
Amen.
To that, yeah, amen. For now.
For now. For now.
Yeah, okay.
So
yeah.
We make something of for now.
Yeah. So if you take that feed, that comment, that thing you just read out there, and you, because this is where this like notion of happiness comes in, like, are you happy with that? Does that make you feel good? Does that make you feel happy? Do you feel like that is enough, right? And I go back to a few things Jim Carrey said in recent times where he's talked about this. He's talked about exactly that. I am enough. I have enough. I've done enough. That's and this struggle that I'm in at the minute is described by that reading.
Yeah.
Right. So it is perfectly described by what came up in your feed.
Yeah.
But here's the serial achiever's problem, isn't it? Because it's like, what's not enough? Like I need to go, like I need to get more, kill more, capture more, do more, like get more in. And this goes full circle back to, is this my period where my butterfly's wings need to? And then it's back to your wonderful observation. This is a phase. Is that butterfly being tested? Right? Is it being tested? Now you could argue it is, because if it fails to build its wings out,
yeah,
or someone peels the thing off, it's, I was going to say effed, but it's not in a good place, because it cannot fly and it dies and perishes within minutes of whatever, so it can't fulfill its potential. Now, you could say, oh, that's not a test, that's a phase. Right? The butterfly's got to go through the phase of pushing against the catalyst, pushing, until it reaches the point where the wing is strong enough to break the catalyst. But if you're the butterfly, that probably doesn't feel too good.
Probably doesn't.
Right? You're probably thinking, holy shit, I'm stuck in here. This is not great. I need to get the hell out of here because this is getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, but I think my conclusion, if there is a conclusion from this conversation, is that this is for me. Whether this helps others or not, I don't know. But for me to get through to the next beginning in this neutral space, I am in the butterfly catalyst, like I am in that. And I've just got to sort of tough it out, you know, but see it like that. I think that's the important thing, is to see it like that. And this idea of the beginnings and the neutrals and the ends, and like, has been really helpful in me coming to that conclusion. It enables me to get from where I am now to where I want to be. And it might take me 30 years, might take me 30 years to get there. Yeah. But it is, without question, when I look at the vision and the version of myself, it is the path I want to go on. And back to your 80-20 point, I've gone much more, I've gone the other way.
Yeah.
I've gone 90-10.
Yeah. It's not like the fearful athlete would do that, would they? Fearless athlete.
I don't know, actually. It's a good point, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I really was totally taken aback by the Deepak Chopra work, and I've always been in that area anyway, as you know, but it really spoke to me in this phase of my life, in this neutral phase, that actually what you need to be about is giving to others to allow them to become the better version of themselves in a more, not in a corporate sense, you know.
Yeah.
Pay me lots of money to do some really cool corporate consulting, transformational leadership stuff that you and I have done for years. But actually, don't pay me anything, or pay me very little, to get a handle on all the stuff you and I have learned and crafted and put together, so people can understand better their lives and what they want to do and their families. And
it's a hypothetical, so I'm framing it as that. But if you knew that in all of your abundant sharing with the people that you've shared with so far, that you've saved a life, if you knew that, right? Somebody told you blah blah blah, you know, blah. You know, if you knew that had happened, would you expect anything else in return?
No. No, because even one life saved, and that doesn't mean that person might take their own life, but saved, you know, that they were pretty miserable and they found a new vibrancy or a new purpose or a new meaning and had got their mojo back.
Yeah.
That's that's me living to my new vision and purpose of myself.
Yeah.
That is it. That is it. So there can be no more Maslow's self-actualization pyramid. You know, there could be no higher order of me being the person I really like. That's in like there are some other material things that go along that go behind that.
If I can remember, I'll send you the podcast link. But there was a podcast recently I listened to, and it was some guy who did some research on Maslow.
Yeah.
And some of the readings that are not well known, Maslow came to the conclusion that he was wrong.
Oh, interesting.
That the highest level is not self-actualization. The highest level is transcendence.
Right.
Transcendence of self, not self-actualization.
Yes, yes, yes. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Me, whereas transcendence is about what you are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. So in the self-actualization, in my definition of it, it is to have gone beyond doing things for me and really helping other people to achieve what they need to achieve.
And so I'm sitting here wondering as you're talking, if perhaps there has been a return, you just haven't seen it yet, or the old Richard, the ending Richard, has a blind spot to the return that may already be abundant all around you.
Correct. I think that would be a very, as with most of your reflections, valuable, wise reflection. And I think that, you know, you bringing in Bridget's work has been really helpful, like really helpful. I think for both of us, actually.
It was really helpful for me.
Yeah. And you know, these conversations are always massively insightful for me.
So
I hope the listeners found it helpful.
Well, we set it up as, you know, when you're going through some hard times, you're going through some struggles, you're going through the neutral zone, maybe listening to a conversation that you weren't meant to be listening into because it was between two, you know, deeply connected friends, then it might be helpful for someone. It might be helpful for someone to hear how others navigate it or don't navigate it.
Yeah.
How the talking out of it can be helpful. So I'm so grateful for your courage, your humility and vulnerability, and willingness just to sit in it.
Yeah, feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. So
it really feels like you were sitting in it.
I'm really grateful.
Oh, well, the feeling is always so mutual.
Thank you for sharing.
Anytime, my friend.